You're really not going to co-sign your grandson's loan. My daughter threw those words at me right there in the kitchen, spatula in hand, voice cutting like a knife. I held my tongue, not because I was lost for words, but at 76, I've realized silence often speaks louder than a heated debate. I held a dish towel, still warm from drying the plates. Zach had just stomped out, his sneakers squeaking on the floor, leaving behind his hurried, impatient words. Come on, Grandma, it's just a formality. I've got a job, no money needed. But it wasn't just a formality. I've been to that bank before, and I know the stakes of signing my name next to a 20-year-old who struggles to keep his account afloat. I raised him better, Lydia muttered, shoving the pan in the sink, water splashing everywhere. That boy needs a car for work. He's doing his best, but I guess that's not enough for you. I folded the towel, thinking aloud. He's got energy. He's got time. The bus is still an option. She spun around. We made room for you, remember? After your surgery, we shifted everything around. That room could have been my office, but we made it yours. She was right. After my hip replacement, when stairs became a risk I couldn't take, they did open their home to me. I was grateful, or at least I thought I was, until now. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can't just sit back and not be part of this family, she said, her voice softer now. As I truly looked at her, I realized she wasn't the little girl I used to braid hair for anymore. She had become a weary woman with a mortgage, a full-time job, and a son who still hadn't grasped the concept of responsibility. But I was more than just someone to cater to their needs. I was my own person, and my participation wasn't a given. That night, as I lay in bed, shadows stretched across the ceiling. My body ached, not from age, but from the heavy realization that I no longer fit in. Somewhere between her words and his expectations, something inside me changed, not out of resentment, but with newfound clarity. Around midnight, the light in my room flickered once, then went out entirely. I thought it was a fuse at first. I checked the lamp, the outlet, but nothing. The rest of the house was aglow with warmth, the hallway light, the blue glow of the TV in the living room. Only my room was plunged into darkness. I lay there, eyes wide open, enveloped by the shadows. The silence in the house was colder than the draft coming through the window with its poor seal. I reached for the lamp switch again, flicked it once, twice, still nothing. Slowly, I got out of bed, my knees stiff and joints creaking. I pulled on my robe, shuffled across the floor in my wool socks, and opened the door just enough to peek into the hallway. The light was soft, golden, and everything else was functioning just fine. I stood there for a long moment before closing the door again. That darkness wasn't accidental. What's your take on this? Share your reaction in the comments below. The next morning, no one brought it up. Zach had already left by the time I made my way to the kitchen. Lydia was at the counter, sipping her coffee and absorbed in her phone. I greeted her with a "Good morning." She nodded, not even glancing up. I grabbed my teacup from the cabinet, filled the kettle, and stood quietly beside her. You know, the kind of silence that feels heavy, pressing down on you. I mentioned, "My light didn't work last night." Just a simple statement, not pointing fingers. She shrugged, still glued to the screen. "Maybe something tripped," she suggested. "Everything else was fine," I replied. Another shrug from her. "You'll have to ask Zach," she added after a moment. He was messing with the breakers the other day. I kept quiet, just brewed my tea, and sat at the table's far end, stirring it slowly. The spoon hitting the porcelain was like a ticking clock. I could have pushed for answers, asked why Zach was messing with the panel. But I knew better. Pushing would make me the issue, the reason for the tension in the house, and I was tired of being that person. Later that day, I checked the breaker box myself. Everything was perfect. Each switch in line, labels intact, wires neatly arranged, and a steady hum. But the following night, the outlet stopped working. I tried plugging in my heating pad, the only relief for my aching hip, and nothing. Tried the second plug, then the one by the door. All dead. I took the pad to the hallway. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It worked well enough over there, almost seamlessly. It was all very understated, a gentle fading away, not a confrontation. No one yelled at me. No one slammed the door in my face. Instead, they gradually chipped away at my comfort, bit by bit. I never brought it up again, neither the lights nor the outlets. I carried on as if nothing had changed, cooked when asked, folded towels fresh from the dryer, fed the cat, and responded to Zach's casual greetings with polite nods. But at night, I sat in that dimly lit room, the lamp off and the power outlets unused, feeling the unspoken message they didn't have the courage to say outright. You're no longer welcome here. It's a peculiar sensation, realizing you've gone from being needed to merely tolerated. You become cautious with your movements, quiet even with your breathing. You stop asking questions because each one feels like an intrusion. Every word becomes a disruption to their routine. After dinner, I found myself sitting by the window, staring out at the cul-de-sac where other homes were alive with activity. Porch lights warmly glowing, cars pulling in after long days. I watched neighbors I barely knew bringing in groceries, walking dogs, sharing soft-spoken arguments on their porches, then vanishing behind curtains that closed gently, unlike doors slammed shut in anger. I imagined what life might be like in a place that didn't dim its lights whenever I disagreed. That's when the thought occurred to me. It started as a whisper, almost apologetic, yet it wouldn't leave me alone. You could leave. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It stayed with me all night, even as I lay there with an extra blanket over my legs, longing for warmth. It wasn't anger or revenge driving this feeling. It was a breath of relief, like surfacing for air after almost drowning. I had to leave. I didn't have much, just a pension check that barely covered the essentials, and a little savings left in the account Derek and I opened before he passed. But it was enough for something modest, something peaceful, something that was entirely mine. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept. It wasn't for long, and it wasn't deep, but I wasn't waking up to the noise of someone else moving around or lights being switched off. I slept because an idea had taken root, bringing a sense of calm. Tomorrow, I'd call the bank, not to beg for a loan or seek approval, but to find out what part of my life was still mine to shape. The bank teller's voice was polite and distant, like someone trained to stay composed, even when delivering bad news. Yes, Mrs. Carver, your account is active. Would you like the current balance? I was perched on the edge of the guest bed, my bed, gripping the cordless phone so tightly my hand hurt. I looked at the unplugged lamp in the corner and whispered, "Yes, please." She gave me the number. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I thanked her and hung up. My fingers were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the thrill of possibility. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Later on, I found myself at the kitchen table with Lydia, who was busy typing away on her laptop, one earbud in, as she listened to a podcast. The soft clack of keys and the distant murmur of her audio companion hung in the air between us. I didn't ask for her focus. I just waited patiently. Soon enough, she sighed, removed the earbud, and glanced my way. "Is something up?" she asked. I paused before speaking. "Do you recall that little trust account Derek and I set up, the one for emergencies?" Her eyes narrowed. "The one you promised not to dip into?" she replied. "Yes, I might need to use it," I admitted, my fingers gently swirling the tea in my cup. "Why?" she inquired, her fingers poised above the keyboard. "I haven't quite figured it out yet," I confessed quietly. "But I think it's time I start making plans." Her expression turned serious. "Mom, if this is about the loan—" "It's not," I interrupted, meeting her gaze. "It's about finding space. I just don't feel like I belong here anymore." A weighty silence settled over us. "You're overreacting," she finally said. "We've all had a tough month. You're taking things too personally." I nodded, though I knew better. The rest of the week drifted by in a fragile truce. I busied myself with folding laundry and refilling the bird feeder, keeping mostly to myself. Zach didn't say a word to me, except once when he asked if I had seen his car keys. I hadn't, and he muttered something as he left. I let it slide. Friday morning, I strolled 3 blocks to the library, found a spot by the window, and started browsing listings. Apartments, studios, senior communities, anything under 1,000. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Most of what I came across was either too far away or too run down to rely on. But then a particular listing stood out. It was a cozy 1-bedroom on Linwood Avenue, complete with a porch and a shared garden. No stairs to worry about, and utilities were all included. I printed it out, folded it with care, and tucked it into my purse like it was a cherished treasure. Back at home, I placed the paper on the nightstand next to the lamp that hadn't seen a plug in ages. Later, as I was dicing onions for dinner, Lydia lingered nearby, nursing a glass of wine. The kitchen was alive with the aroma of garlic and something sweet bubbling away on the stove. "You know," she mused, "I had a chat with Zach. He's still pretty upset." I kept chopping, feeling the rhythm of the knife. "He just feels kind of rejected by you," she continued. I nodded, certain he'd moved past it. She hesitated before speaking again. "Maybe he wouldn't feel that way if you hadn't been so quick to dismiss him," she suggested. I set the knife down and replied calmly, "I wasn't dismissive. I was protecting myself." She rolled her eyes. "But he's family. Isn't family supposed to co-sign loans they can't manage and sit silently as their world goes dark?" I held her gaze and asked, "Is that your idea of family?" My words lingered in the air between us, unanswered. She simply picked up her wine glass and walked away. That night, I dialed the number from the listing A warm voice, belonging to a woman named Nayan, answered, confirming the place was still available and inviting me to visit on Monday morning. I thanked her, my heart racing, as my voice seemed small even to me. After the call, I took a moment to look around. My room. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The dresser gleamed from my polishing. The curtains I'd hemmed to keep out the summer heat were still perfect, but none of this was truly mine. This place was just a temporary stop, borrowed out of necessity. Now I craved something different, something Lydia couldn't provide. No matter how immaculate the sheets or precisely she cut the fruit, I needed peace. Monday was around the corner, and with it, a visit to that little house on Linwood. I wasn't sure if I'd take it, but I knew I had to step inside it. I had to feel what it was like to stand somewhere without the constant fear of losing it all over again. Saturday was spent sorting through my belongings while the house was empty. I reached into the bottom drawer of the old dresser. Lydia always mentioned replacing it, yet never did, and pulled out a file folder I kept hidden beneath folded scarves. Inside were papers untouched for years, Derek's death certificate, the deed to our first home, a dozen faded photographs, and a small cream envelope marked for later in Derek's handwriting. I didn't open it. I knew its contents by heart. The last note he penned from his hospital bed the night before he passed. Reading it once had been enough to tear me apart. I just needed to hold it for a bit. I placed the folder on the bed and turned to the closet. My wardrobe was modest. A few cardigans, a couple of nice dresses, slippers, and the coat with worn cuffs I couldn't let go of. I took a mental note, estimating I'd need about 4, maybe 5 boxes at most. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Isn't it curious how my entire life could shrink down to just a trunk full of fabric and paper? Odd, yet oddly liberating. That evening, I found myself sitting outside, wrapped up in a shawl, watching as the sky slowly shaded to violet over the rooftops. Through the open kitchen window, I overheard Lydia on the phone. "She's been acting strange," she said, "as if she's planning something but won't spill the beans. You know how she is." There was a brief silence. "No, I didn't bring up the loan again. Why bother? She was clear enough." Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear Zach on the other end, irritated, probably pacing. "She ought to be thankful," Lydia continued, her voice softer now. "We took her in. I changed everything, made space." I glanced down at my hands, all knotted and veined, roughened by years of scrubbing dishes and tending the garden. Those same hands once soothed her fever, zipped her dresses, tied her shoes. Had she forgotten, or had I overvalued those moments? Slowly, I got up, my knees protesting, and slipped back inside quietly. The next morning, I caught the early bus downtown, wearing my best shoes, the navy ones with the modest heels, and tucked a notepad into my purse. I wanted to project confidence, like someone still capable of making her own choices. Nadine met me at the entrance of the Linwood house, greeting me with a warm smile and a clipboard in hand. She was at least 20 years my junior, if not more, but her eyes were kind, her voice soothing. The house itself was even tinier than I had imagined. By the way, dear viewer, If you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Picture this: a cozy living room shaped like a square, a snug galley kitchen, and a bedroom barely fitting a twin bed and a dresser. But oh, the brightness. Clean floors and big windows greeted me, with wind chimes swaying on the porch and a sliver of grass right out back. As Nan showed me around, she mentioned, "This is the last unit available. Mostly widows live here, so it's quiet and safe. The landlord's just next door if you need anything," she added with a genuine smile, the kind that feels warm, not rushed. I nodded, feeling the calmness. I hadn't realized how chaotic Lydia's house had become until I experienced this silence. No TV drone, no banging doors, no tension-filled conversations. Right there, I filled out the application with Nan's pen. She assured me they'd process it by week's end, and if all went well, the place would be mine. I thanked her, heart racing, as she handed me a copy of the form and a little brochure about the community garden. "Feel free to plant something," she said. "Most of the women do." I grinned, imagining tomatoes or lavender. Back home that afternoon, no one seemed to notice my absence. Zach was in the garage, lost in a futile project, while Lydia was out shopping. Quietly, I slipped into my room, tucked the lease papers away, and sat on my bed. Something had shifted, not in them, but in me. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. For the first time in ages, I wasn't sitting around waiting for someone to notice me. I wasn't holding out for kindness or dreaming of a return to the past. Instead, I was making plans. Soon enough, I wouldn't be just a guest in someone else's home. I'd be a woman with her own space, her own light, her own warmth, and her own keys. As Zach knocked once and opened the door, I knew it wasn't Grandma. He didn't ask for permission to enter, just let the sound of his hand on the wood and the click of the handle announce him. I glanced up from my crossword, pencil poised. "Can we talk?" he asked, already stepping inside. His cologne hit me like a wave. Maybe I'd just become more sensitive over the years. "Sure," I said, placing the puzzle on my nightstand. He remained standing by the dresser, arms crossed, like he was bracing himself for something big. "I don't get it," he began, voice sharp right from the start. "I never asked you to hand over the money. I just needed your signature. You realize that, right?" I nodded. "I do." "And you still said no?" "Yes." He let out a sarcastic chuckle. "You don't trust me." I said calmly, "I trust you to be exactly who you are right now. And right now, you're a young man who's learning, figuring things out, which means you'll make mistakes, and that's okay. But I can't risk what little I have on a loan. You might not be ready for." He looked at me like I was speaking in riddles. "You think I'm irresponsible." I didn't need to reply. Zach raked a hand through his hair. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You've been living here without paying rent, enjoying my mom's cooking and cleaning. But I do my part too, I interjected, trying to keep things calm. I cook, I clean, I babysit when necessary. I buy my own groceries. If you think I'm a burden, just say it. Don't disguise it as a rent issue. That caught him off guard. He hadn't anticipated a rebuttal. I just assumed you'd help. You always do, he stammered. I nodded. I've chipped in plenty of times. When your mom's first car broke down, when she needed new braces, when your school trip needed funding. I helped because I wanted to, but helping is different from enabling. He shuffled his feet. So, you're punishing me? No, Zach. I'm looking out for both of us. You from debts you might struggle with, and me from losing the little independence I have left. He glanced at the unplugged lamp in the corner, then at me. Did you unplug that? He asked softly. No, I replied quietly. He looked away and silence filled the room. Then, in a gentler tone, he asked, So what now? I met his gaze. Now we move forward. You make your decisions, and I make mine. But you can't guilt me into co-signing, not even for family, or for the sake of history. He didn't say anything back, just nodded slowly and left the room, closing the door with a bit too much force. I sat there for a while, my hand resting on the pencil, the crossword unfinished. It wasn't easy. Saying no to someone you've loved since they were born takes a toll, but it also returns a part of yourself worn down by years of always saying yes. That evening, Lydia gave me the silent treatment at dinner. She handed me the butter without a word and avoided looking at me. Meanwhile, Zach didn't even bother to show up. I took care of my plate, washed it, and left the kitchen spotless. Back in my room, I decided to start packing. Just one box for now, sort of a test run. I filled it with photo albums, my little keepsake box holding my wedding ring, Derek's note, and a scarf that still carried a hint of lilac scent. After sealing it up, I tucked it under the bed, feeling a sense of empowerment, as if I was unlocking a new chapter in my life. Come Tuesday morning, I dialed the bank again, bypassing the usual line this time. I asked for Ms. Halverson, the branch manager. We had spoken a few times before, once when Derek passed away, and again when I needed a separate account from Lydia post-surgery. She greeted me warmly. Mrs. Carver, how can I assist you today? I laid out my situation clearly, skipping the personal bits. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I just needed the facts. I was on the verge of renting a place of my own and wanted to know how much I could withdraw from my savings without penalties. Plus, I needed to figure out how to set up automatic payments for rent and utilities. She listened carefully and guided me step by step. You've been thrifty, she remarked, and your investments have been wise. With cautious planning, you can manage comfortably for a long time, especially if you choose a modest rent. I thanked her, jotted down all the details neatly in my notebook, and ended the call. Then I reached out to Nan. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Absolutely, it's still available, she replied, a hint of excitement lighting up her voice. We've just wrapped up the maintenance yesterday. Are you ready to make it official and reserve it? I glanced at the box beneath my bed. Yes, I responded. Please consider it reserved. Fantastic, she said. You can drop off the deposit and first month's rent this Friday if that suits you. We'll have the key ready and waiting. After hanging up, I caught my reflection in the mirror, pausing as I took in my tired eyes, not just from age, but from the silent tension of tiptoeing around a house that feigned warmth while nudging me to the outskirts. I brushed my hair, slipped on my walking shoes, and left the house without a word. Strolling 3 blocks to the cozy corner coffee shop, I ordered something I hadn't indulged in for ages, a hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. Settling by the window, bathed in sunlight, I savored each sip like someone who finally felt they belonged. Pulling out my notebook, I began jotting down a list: contact utility companies to switch service, set up mail forwarding, pack the essentials first, notify the doctor of my new address, leave a note for Lydia, or maybe not. I left that decision hanging. Back at the house, an unusual stillness filled the air. Zach was out, and Lydia was upstairs, caught up in a work call. I headed straight to my room and continued packing box number 2. Books, stationery, my sewing kit, and a small clock Derek had once gifted me, engraved with a message on the back: "Time is what we share." By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I wrapped it snugly in a dish towel. That evening, there was a gentle knock on my door. "Lydia, can we chat?" she asked softly. I was sitting on the bed, surrounded by half-filled boxes. "Sure," I replied. She entered, glancing around the room, her gaze lingering on the roll of tape, the bare shelves, the open drawers. "You're leaving?" she stated bluntly. I nodded. "Yes." "When?" "Friday." Her body was motionless, her jaw clenched, yet her voice remained calm. "So, that's it. You've just decided?" she pressed. "I've been thinking about it for weeks, but I didn't tell you because I didn't think you'd be pleased for me." She let out a bitter laugh. "You're twisting everything. We gave you a place when you needed one. We've done our best." "Yes," I whispered. "You gave me a place to stay, but not a sense of belonging." Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. "You think you'll be happier on your own?" "I believe I'll find more freedom on my own." "That's not the same," she murmured. There was a pause. "And Zach, he's still hurt." I met her eyes, steady. "He'll get through it. He's young. He'll learn that love isn't a binding contract." She said nothing more, just quietly left, closing the door behind her. That night, I lay awake, not from worry, but from a sense of relief. Everything was unfolding smoothly and quietly. No drama, no yelling, just a decision made by a woman who had spent years giving and now chose to reclaim something for herself, her dignity, her space, her peace. By Wednesday, I was packing up the few remaining items that still made this room feel like it was mine. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In my hands, I clutched my nightgown, the crocheted throw I crafted during chemo when the tremors made reading impossible, and a small tin filled with my mother's old buttons. Everything else, the furniture, the curtains, the mattress, was never really mine. Late morning, Lydia's voice flowed from the other side of the door. No knock, just a brisk, "Need anything from the store?" I paused before replying, "No, thank you." Silence, then the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall. She didn't ask my plans or why I was packing. Perhaps it was easier for both of us to act as if this was just another room being cleared for painting, just another load of laundry, another box for the attic. Around midday, I stumbled upon an old photo in a book I hadn't opened in years. It was from a summer picnic. Lydia barely 10, Zach a baby cradled in my arms, and Derek beside me, grinning in that silly fishing hat he refused to part with. We sat on a plaid blanket, a jug of lemonade at our side, the sun casting a golden hue over everything. I held the picture for a while, not in sorrow, but in recognition. That was a good day. We were happy. I placed it gently in the box, marked, "Keep close." Later that afternoon, I headed to the mailbox with 3 envelopes, one for the power company, another for the post office, and the last for my doctor. All simple notifications. Change of address, effective next week. Please update records accordingly. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It felt like I was stepping out of an old life. I chose not to tell Lydia I'd be out by Friday morning. Didn't want to deal with any drama or fake apologies. I wasn't looking for a last-minute plea or any emotional games to keep me around. Honestly, I doubted she'd even try to stop me. She'd probably watch me go with the same mixed feelings she had when she dropped off clothes at Goodwill. Torn, relieved, a bit guilty. Zach, on the other hand, didn't say a word to me. I heard him moving around, the jingle of his keys, his car starting up, and then disappearing down the street. But it didn't bother me. I was done searching for meaning in his silence. That evening, I allowed myself a small act of freedom. I made a grocery list for my new place, filled with things I liked, not Lydia's favorites or Zach's meals. Oatmeal, fresh apples, strong black tea, a jar of strawberry preserves, rye crackers, whole milk, cocoa mix, simple goodies, peaceful moments. I could already imagine how it would all fit into the cupboards of my little kitchen, with its chipped mugs and single silverware drawer, and how the kettle would whistle on a real stove, not just hum in a microwave. That night, I sat by the window again, not out of sorrow, but as a familiar routine. The street light flickered, casting a gentle yellow glow on the driveway, and wind chimes softly sang in the breeze from somewhere across the street. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't waiting for anything. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I wasn't there to change anything or apologize. I wasn't waiting for the old Lydia to come back or for Zach to suddenly get it. I was just there, simply sitting, and that was enough. Just 2 more nights, and then the morning would arrive when I'd have my name on a lease and my hand on a doorknob leading to peace. The apartment greeted me with the scent of fresh paint and lemon cleaner. It was truly silent, not the kind of silence you find in the back room of someone else's place, where the sound of footsteps above reminds you of your place. This was genuine quiet, still and expansive, even in the tiniest rooms. Nain handed over the keys with a smile, saying, "Congratulations, Mrs. Carver. Welcome home." I held the keys, feeling their cold unfamiliarity, and then closed my hand around them with a nod. "Thank you," I replied. It had been ages since I'd felt something was truly mine. She helped me bring in a few boxes, carefully packed with books, linens, 2 ceramic mugs, and a photo of Derek by the lake. She didn't ask questions, just offered a polite smile and said, "Take your time settling in. I'm just 3 doors down in apartment 3B, if you need anything." Once she left, I stood in the room, slowly taking it all in. The hardwood floor whispered under my slippers, and the heater purred warmly by the window. Outside, the shared garden was just coming to life, green shoots pushing through the soil with gentle persistence. I placed Derek's photo by the window and started putting away the groceries I'd brought along. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. My groceries, my decisions. There was just one chair, a wooden one I'd rescued from Lydia's, where it was no longer welcome in the kitchen. I set it by the window, boiled some water, and brewed myself a cup of tea. The flavor seemed richer here, not because the tea was different, but because I was the one making it. With a splash of milk, I nestled into the chair, cradling the cup in my hands. For a whole hour, I allowed myself to do absolutely nothing. No unpacking, no organizing, just watching the light dance across the floor and letting the silence settle in like an old friend. As the afternoon rolled in, I took out my sewing kit and crossword book, draped a cozy throw over the chair, and hung my 2 favorite dresses in the small closet. By evening, the place was still half packed, half empty, but it already felt more like home than that back room ever did. I warmed up some lentil soup I'd prepared the night before and carried along in a thermos, savoring it at a little fold-out table. There was no conversation, no rush, no one commenting on the salt. Once finished, I washed the bowl, dried it, and put it neatly away. Later, as I slipped into my nightgown, the phone rang. I had kept my old number, a little thread of continuity. The caller ID showed Lydia. She hadn't called the day before, not when I was moving, not when she found my empty room and barren drawers. Now, at 8:43 p.m., she was reaching out. I let it ring, choosing silence over speaking. I let the phone ring until it went to voicemail, watching the notification pop up. One new message. I didn't bother listening. Instead, I placed the phone face down on the windowsill and nestled into bed. The sheets carried a soft lavender scent. I'd slipped some dried sachets in them, a forgotten ritual from years ago. Snuggling under the covers, I gazed through the small window. The stars above Linwood Avenue were faint, but there, specks of light sprinkled across the dark sky. I murmured something into the night, not really expecting any response. Just being here was enough. Before the sun had a chance to rise, I was already awake. Old habits die hard. My body still thought it was living somewhere else, anticipating the morning bustle of clinking dishes, a muted TV, footsteps in the hall. But now there was only a peaceful stillness, a welcome kind. I lingered in bed, listening to the radiator tick softly, like contented breathing. Eventually I got up, wrapped myself in a robe, and made a cup of real coffee, not the bitter instant stuff Lydia always bought. Pouring it into my favorite mug, I stepped out onto the small porch. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wet earth and far-off wood smoke. Across the courtyard, someone else was also awake, a woman in a cozy cardigan tending to her potted plants. She caught my eye and smiled. "New neighbor?" she called out warmly. "Yes," I replied, raising my mug. "Just moved in yesterday. Welcome." I'm Rita from Apartment 2A. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. "Hey, we've got this walking group on Thursdays if you're ever up for it," she said. "Thanks," I replied. "I just might join in." She waved goodbye and went back to tending her violets. I lingered outside a bit longer, coffee in hand, watching a squirrel race along the fence. Eventually, I headed inside to listen to last night's voicemail. Lydia's voice came through. "Mom, I saw your room. I guess this is real," she said, her breath catching as though she was trying to steady it. I don't know what you want me to say. Zach's upset. I'm upset. It's like you vanished without a trace. Another pause. I wish you'd at least told me where you were going. And then, click, no apologies, no concerns about my safety or if I had enough cash. No offer to help with the move. Just their frustration at my absence. I deleted the message, not in anger, but in a moment of clarity. By noon, everything was unpacked except for that last box, the one with old photo albums and Derek's letter. I slid it under the bed. Some things could wait. Some memories could rest quietly a little longer. After lunch, I took a stroll to the corner market just 3 blocks away and bought a bunch of tulips. Yellow, my favorite. The cashier, a teenage girl with chipped purple nail polish, wrapped them gently and asked, "For someone special?" I grinned. Yes, me. Back at home, I placed them in a glass jar on the table. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. Later that evening, just as I was finishing up my soup, the phone started ringing again. Zach. I watched the screen light up. 5 rings, 6, and then silence. I didn't bother checking the voicemail. I already knew what it would say. Instead, I snuggled under the Afghan draped over my legs and switched on the little radio I'd brought along. I stumbled upon a classical station playing something soothing and expansive. With my eyes closed, I let the music wash over the room. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. No one could intrude on my peace and lay claim to it. No one could demand my thoughts, my signature, or my presence in a place that felt like exile. This was my sanctuary. The quiet, the warmth, the small yellow tulips leaning toward the lamp. This was all mine. I had no idea what tomorrow would bring, and I had no plans beyond the next cup of tea. But tonight, I had everything I needed. That first night in the new apartment felt like a gentle release. The second was pure stillness. But the third felt like finally coming home. The morning greeted me with pancakes for one, made with real butter and fresh apple slices, accompanied by the old sweet tunes on the radio. I didn't miss the background noise of a household where I never quite fit in. I didn't miss being walked on eggshells around or completely ignored. I didn't even miss the footsteps outside my door. After breakfast, I sat down with my notebook and wrote 3 simple words: I am home. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I can't quite put my finger on why writing them mattered so much. Perhaps it was the years I spent as a transient figure in other people's lives. Long before moving in with Lydia, I drifted through medical appointments, Zach's school concerts, and family gatherings where my presence was necessary but never really invited. But now I had a door that I could lock from the inside, a cupboard where nothing vanished overnight, and a small hook for my robe that stayed just as I left it. I had my own space, peaceful and unoccupied. I decided to stroll to the library, signed up for a brand new card, and checked out a couple of books, one on herb gardening and another about women who reinvented themselves after turning 70. I found a park bench nearby, and there I sat for over an hour, reading with my coat snugly buttoned and the sun gently warming my face. It felt like a rare luxury to be absorbed in a book with nowhere else I needed to be. When I returned to my apartment, a note awaited me under the door. It was penned in neat handwriting. Mrs. Carver, If you ever feel like joining us for tea, we gather on Wednesdays at 4 in the garden. Just a few neighbors. Rita. I pinned the note to the fridge using a magnet from Derek's workshop, an old horseshoe shaped into a heart. Sitting at the table, I found myself smiling, a genuine smile, not the polite one perfected during my time with Lydia. That evening, I lit a candle for the first time in years. It was a small gesture, yet deeply significant. The room filled with a soft orange glow as I made dinner, a bowl of soup, a slice of toast, and a small dish of olives. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There was something Lydia always mentioned about that smell. It reminded me of old furniture. It was a scent I actually liked. In the middle of dinner, the phone rang once more. This time, the number wasn't familiar. I picked up, and it was Zach, his voice softer than usual. "Grandma," he started. "Yeah, he cleared his throat. "I just wanted to check if you're okay." "I am," I replied. "I'm doing well." There was a pause. "Where are you living now?" he asked. "Just a few miles away." "Still in town?" He hesitated, saying, "You didn't tell us." I nodded. "True." "Why not?" he pressed. "Well, you didn't ask," I gently explained. "Not really. You were upset. I refused to share more. You weren't concerned about where I'd go, just that I left." Silence lingered. "I'm not trying to make you feel bad," I continued, "just to give you some perspective. Sometimes leaving isn't about anger, it's about necessity. I didn't mean to..." He started. "You didn't make me feel anything, Zach." I interrupted. I've felt this way for years, and I finally took action." More silence followed. "Can I see you?" he asked. "Not yet," I replied. "Maybe soon, but not right now." "Okay," he whispered, so quietly it nearly broke my heart. "I'm not upset with you," I reassured him, "but I need this time for myself." "Okay, Grandma." After he hung up, I sat at the table for a long time. The soup was cold, and the candle was barely flickering. I wasn't crying. I didn't feel shattered. I felt complete, maybe for the first time in decades. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This cozy little apartment, complete with its quirky drawer and those worn counter tiles, had become my sanctuary, a place where I could truly be myself. Here, silence felt like a gift, and I had control over my own space. No longer would I live where someone else's mood dictated my peace. On Thursday morning, I found myself at my lawyer's office. Francine Daly, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a sharp gaze and a long gray braid, had been my rock since Derek's passing. She guided me through the labyrinth of estate settlements, will revisions, and paperwork I'd never wanted to tackle. As I entered her office, she looked up and gave me a knowing nod. "I was beginning to wonder when you'd stop by," she said. I took a seat and replied, "I need to make some updates. I've moved." She folded her hands and said, "Lydia left a message last night. Sounded worried." I chuckled, more like surprised than worried. Francine arched an eyebrow. "She also asked if your accounts are still in your name." That was no shock to me. "I'd like to review my financial directives and update my will," I said, keeping my tone even. Francine smiled slightly. "Let's get started." For the next hour, we delved into the documents. I decided to remove Lydia as the primary beneficiary, not out of spite, but because it was the practical choice. We both knew she'd see my savings as a resource to use, not a legacy to honor. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So, I set up a local scholarship fund specifically for women over 40 who are heading back to school. Education transformed my life once, briefly, before I paused it to take care of my dad. Now, I want to offer someone else that same shot at a fresh start. I also arranged for a small monthly stipend for Zach, but with a catch. It kicks in once he turns 25, and only if he's completed some kind of training or schooling. This isn't a punishment, it's a framework, something to guide him when I'm no longer around to do so. As for my personal belongings, my jewelry, books, and those handmade quilts, I asked for them to be donated to a local shelter helping women escape abusive situations. When everything was settled, Francine printed out a clean copy and slid it over to me. "Are you sure?" she asked. Without a doubt, I signed. "Completely," she added, leaning back, hands folded. "You seem lighter, happier, Rosalind." And I was. Leaving her office, I stopped by the florist on the corner and picked up a single daffodil, yellow, a color symbolizing new beginnings. I carried it home, placing it in a small jar on the windowsill next to Derek's photo. It looked just right there in the sunlight. That evening, I cooked some pasta and uncorked a bottle of red wine I'd been saving for no particular reason. I toasted quietly to the air, to freedom, to clarity, to decisions made late that still hold weight. Just as I was wrapping up my meal, the phone rang. Lydia again. This time, I listened to the voicemail. "Mom, I don't know what to say. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel." You just took off, leaving Zach in a whirlwind of confusion. I'm trying to keep it respectful, but I can't quite figure out where I went wrong. There was no apology, just a mix of bewilderment and self-pity. She wasn't ready to see the truth. Not yet. Maybe never. But that's okay. I'm not living my life for her to get me. I'm living it because I've spent too long pretending I didn't need one of my own. Later, I found myself nestled in my chair, wrapped in a blanket with a book resting on my lap. The rain gently tapped against the window, creating a soothing soundtrack. Inside, the daffodil drooped slightly in the cozy glow of the lamp. No interruptions, no echoing arguments, no slamming doors, just the calm rhythm of my breath, steady and peaceful. My own roof over my head, my name on the papers, my own life. It wasn't loud or grand, but it was entirely mine. Saturday afternoon brought a knock on the door. Not a package, not a neighbor. It was Zach. Peering through the peephole, I saw him standing there, his tall frame hunched a bit, shifting nervously. The usual self-assurance was nowhere to be seen. His shoulders slumped, hands buried deep in his hoodie. I opened the door. "Hi, Grandma," he said softly. The last time we met, he was so angry. Now he looked like someone who finally realized how many bridges he'd set on fire. I stepped aside. "You can come in, but only if you're ready to talk like an adult." He nodded. "I am." He stepped inside, taking a few deliberate steps as he surveyed the small apartment. His gaze touched on the walls, the single chair by the window, and the slightly wilted yellow tulips that still held on. He didn't mention the apartment's size or simplicity. Maybe he was wise enough to know that would cut his visit short. "I like it here," he finally said. "I do too," I responded, gesturing towards the little table. He took a seat, and I poured us both some tea. We sat quietly for a bit, the only sound being the gentle clinking of spoons and cups. Then he broke the silence. I didn't come to ask for anything. That's good, I replied softly but firmly. I just wanted to see you. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I nodded, waiting patiently. You were right, he admitted after a pause. About the loan, about me not being ready. I got turned down anyway, even with someone else involved. I didn't rub it in. This wasn't the time for that. I'm sorry, he said, his voice sincere. Not just for the loan, for everything. For how I spoke to you, for acting like you owed me. I looked at him closely, noticing his hands trembled slightly. Was it nerves, shame, or both? It wasn't just entitlement, Zach, I said quietly. You acted like I stopped being human the moment I said no. He flinched, acknowledging the truth. I know. I raised your mother to be independent, but somewhere along the line, she taught you that needing meant taking, and I played along. He looked at me, really looked. You were always there, he acknowledged. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Every single school trip, every birthday bash, even those times when Mom forgot, I guess I never really appreciated it. You sure didn't. We sat there in silence for a moment, but it wasn't awkward. It was packed with honesty. I've started working at the repair shop over on West Street, he shared after a bit. And not exactly where I saw myself, but it's a job. I nodded. There's nothing wrong with honest work. I wanted you to know I'm making an effort. I believe you, I said. Trying is a start, but rebuilding trust takes time, Zach. You get that, right? I do. He glanced at his tea, then said, Mom thinks you're punishing us. She doesn't get it. I'm not punishing anyone, I replied. I'm just protecting myself. There's a big difference. He gave a small smile, a bit awkward. I didn't realize there was a difference until now, he admitted. I reached over, placing my hand on his. Zach, I never stopped loving people just because they hurt me. But I do choose the type of love I can offer and the kind I can't anymore. He didn't cry, but I could tell by the tension in his jaw and the way his eyes blinked quickly. Can I visit again? He asked. Of course, I said. But only if it's because you want to see me, not because you need something. I understand. He stood up, took a quick look around, then hugged me. Not a hurried hug, but a real one, like when he was little and thought I could solve anything. He didn't linger. He didn't ask for more than I could give. And when he left, I felt hopeful instead of exhausted. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That evening, I lit another candle, this time lavender, with a gentle, lingering flame. Nestled in my chair, a cozy blanket draped across my legs, I savored a mug of warm cocoa. The world outside lay still, and inside, for the first time in ages, I embraced a truth I've been avoiding. Leaving wasn't the demise of love. It was the dawn of self-respect. 3 days passed, and then Lydia appeared, unexpected and unannounced. I was tending to my little windowsill herb garden, basil, rosemary, and a small pot of chives, when I heard a knock. It wasn't rushed or hesitant, just 3 clear taps. Peeking through the peephole, there she was, arms crossed, coat fastened tightly, her lips pressed into that familiar line. I eased the door open, halfway. "Lydia." "Hi, Mom," she replied, her face showing no smile. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside slowly, watching her enter. She stood in the heart of my modest apartment, assessing it like a hotel room she hadn't reserved. Not unfriendly, but certainly not at home. "It's smaller than I thought," she observed. "It suits me," I said. She turned to face me. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I did," I answered, "in 100 quiet ways you chose to ignore." She flinched, ever so slightly. "Zach said he visited." "He did." She nodded and began to wander the room, her fingers brushing lightly over the table and chair. She stopped at the window, gazing at Derek's photo. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she said gently. "I thought you were upset, but then you'd cool off." I wasn't angry, Lydia. I was finished. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. She gazed at me, and for a brief instant, I glimpsed the little girl she once was, the one who'd snuggle next to me during a storm, the one who'd stop crying after I kissed her bandaged knee. "You taught me to be strong," she said, "but sometimes I think I mistook that for being tough." "Yes," I replied, "you did." She eased into the chair like it couldn't bear the weight of her regret. "When you moved in, I didn't know how to help," she admitted. "I didn't know how to make space for you without losing my own." I gently replied, "I never asked you to give up anything. I just needed room to breathe." She lowered her gaze to her hands. "I thought I was helping," she murmured. "I convinced myself I was, but I started to resent it. I allowed Zach to speak to you in ways he shouldn't have. I believed you owed us." I responded, "I gave you years of my life, my resources, my patience. But the moment I stopped, the door began to close." She whispered, "I know, and I hate that I didn't realize it until you were gone." We sat in silence for a bit, the heater's gentle hum filling the quiet. "I'm not asking you to return," she said. "I know better now." I nodded. "I just wanted to apologize." It wasn't a grand gesture. No tears, no pleas, just 5 words that had taken her far too long to say. "I accept your apology," I replied, "but I'm not coming back. That house ceased to be mine a long time ago." She nodded, stood up, walked to the door, and then turned back. "Can we just hit reset from here?" I looked at her, and she wasn't the little girl I raised or the chilly figure from the kitchen months back. Now, she was simply my daughter, perhaps opening up for real for the first time. "We can begin something anew," I replied, "but not by going backward. This is about moving forward." Her posture relaxed, and her expression softened. "Okay," she said, reaching for the door handle, then hesitated. "Do you need anything?" she asked. "No, but thanks for asking," I replied. She quietly left, closing the door behind her. It wasn't slammed or half open, just gently shut, leaving behind a stillness that felt welcoming and spacious. The seasons transitioned with little fuss. Spring grace gave bay of way to gain to the gulking start of summer. The garden outside bloomed with a riot of colors, more than I could ever name. Rita brought over a lilac cutting, and we planted it beneath my window. She assured me it would root quickly and be lush and fragrant by next year. "It's patient," she noted. Like me, I mused silently. I joined the Wednesday tea circle, starting with 4 of us, women all in our 60s or older, each with stories wrapped in time, never hurried in the telling. We chatted about books, neighbors, those pesky aches in our hips and knees, and recipes that danced on the edge of memory. Beneath the chatter, a quiet sisterhood formed, one that needed no explanation. Nobody questioned why I had moved. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. They made room for me at the table and passed the sugar bowl my way. Other than that, I mostly kept to myself. I spent more time reading, whipped up meals, and strolled to the market once a week, buying just what I needed and nothing extra. I even treated myself to a small radio with a handle, just like the one Derek and I used to tote along on picnics. One lazy Sunday afternoon, I turned it on while sitting on the porch, watching birds flit through the hedges as Billie Holiday's smooth voice poured out. That was the day I finally let the tears flow. It wasn't the harsh, breathless kind of crying filled with anger, but a gentle, quiet release for all the burdens I'd carried too long. Years of being needed, but not seen, loving silently, waiting in dim rooms for some kindness to appear. I wept because I had endured it all. And now I had this. It wasn't perfect or endlessly joyful, but it was space, dignity, and light that stayed on for me. Lydia called now and then, not frequently, but just enough. Our talks were careful, but improving. She no longer asked when I'd visit or dredged up the past. Once she mentioned, "Zach's different since he saw you. He's punctual now, and even bought a second-hand car with his name on the papers." I didn't say much, just nodded and said I was happy for him, which I truly was. And then Zach sent me a letter, handwritten on paper. It was short and sweet, folded into a plain envelope. "Dear Grandma," it read, "I think of you every time I check my bank balance before using my card. Thanks for showing me that sometimes a no is exactly what you need to steer your future in the right direction. Love, Zach." I tucked his letter into the same drawer where Derek's old note rested. Different expressions of love, both well-deserved. My apartment felt more like home now. Books filled the shelves. Chives had overtaken their pot. And where a daffodil once stood, a small clay dish with dried lavender took its place. I realized I didn't need much. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I thought back to that night when the light in my old room flickered out. I lay there in the dark, more numb than scared. But now I smile, not from bitterness, but from understanding. That darkness, harsh as it was, illuminated everything. It revealed how little control I had in that house and how much I gained when I finally left it. I didn't need a dramatic conclusion. No grandchild falling at my feet in apology. No daughter transformed by guilt. All I needed was a place where my yes meant something, and my no didn't threaten my security. And now I've found it. Last week, I hung a wind chime outside my window. A simple one, with 5 hollow tubes and a wooden heart in the middle. It only makes sound when the breeze hits just right, but when it does, it sings softly, like something rediscovering its voice. That's what this place has been for me. Not an escape, but a rediscovery. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I recalled the feeling of being truly seen as an entire person, not just a supporting role in someone else's story, not a temporary stand-in or a duty to fulfill, just a woman wise enough from years of experience to recognize when love becomes a burden and when silence feels like being cast away. I've come to terms with the idea that Lydia and I might never share the same closeness we once did, but we communicate now, treading carefully to avoid the old pitfalls. Occasionally, she sends me snapshots. Zach at his job, the cat lounging on the porch, the garden she planted all on her own this year. They're learning to do things without me, and I'm learning too. I wasn't meant to vanish just because they don't need me anymore. Rita had me over for dinner last night. She made soup, and we sat on her patio as the sky softened into dusk. She shared a thought that lingered with me. You know, she said, many women our age feel like their story's already been told, that what's left is just a waiting game. But choosing yourself might just be the best chapter yet. I nodded because I felt the truth in her words. I'd spent so much time living for others that I lost sight of what it meant to create a life on my own terms. Now, each morning, I open the window, tend to my herbs, enjoy a quiet read, and shop for my groceries with my own list. No one dims the lights on me for having a different opinion. And when the breeze stirs the wind chime, it reminds me that this is mine, this time, this space, this serenity. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you're tuning in and something in your life feels like it's gradually fading away, or if you find that you're more tolerated than truly embraced, hear this. You're never too old to start fresh. It's never too late to stand up for your dignity. Saying I've had enough doesn't make you selfish. And if anyone's ever made you feel like your no betrayed them, keep this in mind. Your peace isn't a luxury. It's your right. It's always the right time to claim it. If this message resonates with you, share it. Another woman out there needs to know it's not too late. By the way, dear viewer, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel.